Well, $1 billion or $1 million an hour. That is how much the government claims a delay to new NDIS legislation will cost taxpayers. Labor now launching a ticker to count the cost after the Coalition and the Greens voted to delay reforms that are designed to stop rorting of the system. So let's bring in NDIS and Government Services Minister Bill Shorten in Canberra and Shadow Minister for Finance Jane Hume in Melbourne. Good morning to you both.
Hi.
Bill, you are clearly not happy about this, but even if you can get these costs reined in, we're hearing this morning the NDIS will be more expensive than the aged pension within a decade. Is it sustainable?
The NDIS is changing lives. It's helping hundreds of thousands of people and their families, and it's employing hundreds of thousands of people. It's doing a lot more good than harm. So yes, it is sustainable in the future, but we've all got to join in to make it sustainable for the future. That's why I was incredibly disappointed to see that after legislation which has been the subject of a 12-week Senate committee, the Greens and inexplicably the Liberals decided they wanted more time to consult over the next 8 weeks, even though the actuary of the scheme has said that delaying some of these reforms to close down loopholes will cost participants and taxpayers $1 billion over the next 40 days.
Jane, do you take responsibility for that $1 billion? Is it worth it?
Well, the Coalition agreed that the NDIS is fundamentally important because Bill's right, it does change lives. It gives some of our most vulnerable Australians, those with disabilities, a chance for a better quality of life and access to the supports that they need, which is why it's so important that the Senate is allowed to do its job to scrutinise the legislation that Bill has put before us.
But
now,
Bill said you've already had 12 weeks to look at it. Isn't that enough?
The Coalition will support the sensible recommendations that are in this legislation, but Bill also didn't tell you that he dumped a whole series of amendments on that committee at the last minute and then expected the Senate to pass that legislation amended without any further scrutiny. Stakeholders are coming to us and telling us that they're concerned about how these changes are going to affect them. It's much better to do the work now, get the job done, and then pass the legislation rather than find out that there's unintended consequences when it's too late and the legislation's been passed. Bill, you've had 2 years to do this, 2 years,
well, you can't,
and now you expect the Senate to turn on a dime once you've dumped amendments.
Jane, let me answer that. Let me answer that point. First of all, a Senate shouldn't take 20 weeks. The opposition and the Greens have been complaining that we won't compromise.
Well, hang on, the government shouldn't take 2 years.
Well, sorry, but now you're saying we're going too slow or we're going too fast. It can't be both. The truth of the matter is that there's some simple propositions which don't require 20 weeks to analyse, and I'll tell you what it is. At the moment, people are expending their plan. They get a 12-month plan. Now, what's happening is that a lot of these plans are being spent before the 12 months. Now, in some cases, that's legitimate. The wheelchair's broken, the initial assessment was wrong. But the agency who run the scheme have told me, and we've told the Parliament, that about 2/3 of these plan variations where the money gets spent before the 12 months are not legitimate. This is a design flaw. It's been there. We've called it out. This is not just, oh, we want to make sure we look at every amendment. This is a $1 billion delay, Jane. In a cost of living crisis, the idea that we need to have more chin stroking and more analysis of amendments, which, to be honest, we can work out very easily, is just an excuse for, in my opinion, it's not you personally, but it's just such a stupid, wasteful action. It's horrific and obscene when we know what we've got to do, and at the end of the day, you're probably going to vote for it anyway. So why are we wasting, as the clock shows, $1 million an hour while you guys get your act together to look at plain English?
We will vote for it, but we're also going to amend it to add more integrity measures around the system, Bill, because the stakeholders are telling us that this isn't good enough.
But why? So I'm either what? Too tough, too soft, too quick, too slow. Come on.
And while you guys are arguing about this, everyone sitting at home eating their breakfast has another issue that they want us to talk about, which is the cost of living. So if you don't mind...
Well, this is a cost of living issue, Jane. And anyway, we've got next week in the Senate. I invite Jane and the Liberals, rather than let's burn $1 billion on the national credit card, sit down with me next week and let's thrash it out. Let's, for God's sake, not waste $1 billion.
Let's talk to stakeholders, because that's who this is about. It's not about
Jane,
you, it's not about me. Let's talk to them.
I'll let you guys talk about this off air, because
and the whole
I do
of the
want to
Liberal Party ever will.
I do want to get to our next topic because people at home are struggling with their bills, they're struggling with their mortgages, and now they're hearing there is no light at the end of the tunnel because inflation has surged to 4%. Jane, this means a 14th rate rise could be on the cards. Can people handle this?
Well, I'm the chair of the Cost of Living Committee, and I hear every day that families are struggling to put food on the table, to send their kids to school, to keep their lights on, to keep the doors of their businesses open. This rise in inflation certainly won't be good news for them. A lot of them are at breaking point. The potential for another rate rise would send chills down their spines. We want to see the government take this seriously and use their fiscal levers, not just rely on the RBA to do all the heavy lifting to bring down inflation, because clearly their budgets are making the RBA's job that much harder, making the situation worse, and Australians are paying the price.
Bill, you and your colleagues must have had a collective groan when you saw that inflation figure come out. We know you've got your tax cuts coming into play and energy rebates from the 1st of July. I mean, that's welcome relief, but are you worried it's fuelling inflation even more?
No, the cost of living relief we're doing is tapered in a way it doesn't cause inflation, but it does help with the energy bills, $300 available from next Monday. The tax cuts are necessary. When Labor came to power, inflation had a 6 in front of it. Now it's got 4. It is difficult. Like, we're groaning not for us, we're groaning because we want to make sure that people are able to make ends meet. But between cheaper medicines and some of the other measures, the fact that low-paid workers are going to get some modest increases, we're doing a series of measures. I would just say, in terms of the cost of living issue, though, Jane and I could sort out saving $1 billion. She just said there's going to be we need more fiscal levers. Let's not waste money next week on Senate committee games when, in fact, we could just help the NDIS, and that's going to help cost of living. Like, sometimes we just have an opportunity to do practical things. So let's do it in the Senate next week on the NDIS
Actually,
as well.
your cuts to the NDIS have already been factored into the budget. I think that there's more important decisions that can be made.
Wow,
That will
when did
actually
$1
make
billion
difference to
not
people's
become
lives.
worth $1 billion, Jane?
You
That's
put
a
them
real
in the
let the meat
budget 2
cake
years
attitude.
ago, mate.
I think we
Let
need
the
to
meat
get you
cake.
both in the same room to be talking about this, but
I'd
thank
love
you for
that.
talking about it on our show this
I'd love
morning. Bill Shorten and Jane Hume, thanks for your
All
time.
right, see
Thanks,
ya.
Jane.
Thanks.
Alex.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my goodness, Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports, and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?